Hello everybody, how are you guys doing? Now in this video I am going to talk about the issue that's going on between Monique and her eldest son from a previous relationship. And y'all, this is just wow, this is just crazy. It's a lot, okay? A whole lot. Monique had this to say, and she said this on Shannon Sharp's show about her son, about them being estranged and them having issues. And she only spoke about this specific son, and she's spoken about him, before in interviews. However, this is what she said in the Club Shay Shay interview about her eldest son.
What's your relationship like? Is he resentful of that?
We're still very much separated.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where you have to pray to the universe and say, let time do the healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Right.
That's it. Let time do that healing. It may heal it in time, and it may not.
Right.
And that's something that we as parents have to say, listen,
right.
I've done what I could do. I've taken accountability for it. Now it's up to you.
Right.
That's like when somebody's saying, Shannon, I want to apologize to you. Now it's up to you.
Whether or not to accept it.
But once I give it to you, I've done my part. And don't apologize like no punk. I'm just sorry for everything. That get your ass out of it. No, break it down.
Now, when it comes down to her eldest son, what's crazy to me about, just this entire situation, not only about what she said, but it seems like D.L. Hughley had brought that up slightly, talking about how, you never see Monique with her family and there's no evidence of somebody loving, her for real or something like that. I'm going to put that clip in right here.
You won't ever see her with her family, videos with her children or grandchildren, because nobody fucks with me. How do you have sweet babies when your own babies don't fuck with you? How do you love us for real when there's no evidence of anybody loving you for real, except your daddy?
Now, the biggest issue D.L. Hughley had with Monique was because he felt as though she was bringing up his daughter's trauma because, Monique had called him a coward, saying that, hey, his daughter was AR'd and, he knew about it and, he never spoke up or defended his daughter. That was, Monique's thing. I mean, it made D.L. Hughley feel a ways because he's like, hey, why would you bring up my child's trauma in order to take a shot at me? There's other ways you could do it. However, in this previous clip, he's kind of speaking about Monique and her issues with her son, her and her children, period. You don't know what's going on. This has been a public situation. Monique has talked about, her having not being the best of mother, or her not, being nurturing, and her not being interested in being a mother early on, when she had her son at the time, her first son, she just wasn't a great mother. So D.L. Hughley used something that, Monique had spoke about publicly to take shots at Monique. Something that he got upset with her for doing to him. He's so upset about her bringing up his daughter's situation, his daughter's trauma. Trauma is trauma, right? Trauma is trauma. If something affected your child in a specific way, it's not fair for somebody else to bring it up. And that was D.L. Hughley's point. However, he did the same thing in this situation with Monique.
Alleged contract dispute we had. But what she did in response to that, this broad even brought out my daughter's personal trauma. My daughter was molested and Monique brought that shit out and told the world that I allowed my daughter to be raped in front of me. The lying motherfucker. She knows she was lying. And it only stopped when everybody from my family checked her.
Now, in this stance, Monique this is an old situation as far as the concert situation of her bringing up, his daughter's trauma. Monique had apologized for that and everything. And he chose to basically speak of her son's trauma in response to her. Something that he got upset when she did, he did. Now, let's get into the son, right? The son, this is a traumatic situation for him. And this was really hard for him to speak about, and something that was really hard. It just seemed like it's a lot, okay? Especially with her son also being a comedian. A lot of the times comedians tend to deal with pain in a comedic way. So it kind of doesn't show his trauma, but just how he's so dismissive of his mom and how he's has a I don't care type of, disposition. It gives that something is truly wrong and that he's hurt about this entire situation. And I just thought it was not really good. It was done in poor taste that D.L. Hughley would bring up, Monique's son's trauma, and now the son has to come out and speak up about it. I feel like, the fact that, he made those statements as far as where's your son and, where's your, the people that love you, where's your kids, it made her son have to speak out about the trauma. And then also Monique roughly addressed molested, but she didn't want to get into details because they are still, estranged. So this is what her son had to publicly say online about, him experiencing trauma and just everything with him and his mom. And he's, handling it very lighthearted, but you can tell that this young man is hurting.
I am Shalon. I am a stand-up comedian, Monique's oldest son. I guess I felt the need to make this video to just provide some context into this false narrative about her praying to the universe in order to reconcile our relationship or whatever the hell it is. I wrote it all down so that way I don't go all over the place and get emotional or anything like that. So I'm gonna talk like I'm reading a script, but it's just gonna help me kind of stay together. But to address the Club Shay interview that she did, where she states that she prays to the universe in regards to reconciling our relationship, as I stated, is odd. My mother and I both know that that is a very false narrative, and I would like to free her of having to continue telling that lie. Faith without work is dead, and neither one of us cares to put forth any effort to reconcile with the other. We are separate, as she put it, because she doesn't care to be my mother any more than I care to be her son. Neither one of us has had the desire to reach out to the other in a very long time, and I don't think that either of us anticipates that feeling ever returning. Speaking with my mother directly, in my experience, will either lead to some odd newfound moment of clarity in regards to how she was as my mother, or she retreats back to daddy to move forward with a conversation.
Now, every time I see Monique these days, she's on doing some greasy ass video with her and her daddy.
And I'm tired of hearing my mother's truths. Newsflash, I'm not sure if people know, but standing in your truth doesn't make you noble. I'm not sure if people are aware of that. But responding this way, I feel as though it allows me to say my piece uninterrupted. To those wondering, well, why say something now? Call it a form of therapy for me, I suppose. But when her daddy had intentionally stated that they have 3 sons, but his wife is on the internet talking about the 4th son in a video that has millions of views, that rubbed me the wrong way. But anyway, to inform a child that you are not interested in being a mother at a time when that kid is the only kid that has the potential to lead a child to believe that you are not interested in them specifically. But to take it a step further, you also admit, my mother had also admitted to me that she didn't do the best job that she could do, which would also make one begin to question, all of your past decisions and prior emotional interactions. But to be completely honest and fair, those were things that I was willing to get over. Nobody's perfect, we're all human, but my mother showed a clear lack of humility, compassion, and consideration when taking any level of accountability for those things. My mother does a fantastic job of acknowledging a lot of things, but she doesn't take accountability very well, and anything that she may take true accountability for, it's only at her convenience, in my experience. But if I had to guess, though, her interest in being a mother probably started around the time that she married her daddy and had his children. But that interest, obviously seemed one-sided, and as it should have been. By that time, I'm in my late teens, so to some degree, the neglect becomes easier to hide or validate, I guess you could say. There are now 2 baby boys in the house, that require attention. But still during that time, however, I still watched her enjoy the love and admiration of total strangers more than my own. To this very day, my mother has never expressed to me when, if ever, she became interested in me as her son. That did lead me down a path of questioning my self-worth and struggling to understand the value of a mother in a child's life. In the interview, she also states that she gave me an apology. But an apology to a son from a mother that consciously showed no interest in him holds no weight. There are still women to this day that my mother will give credit to for being more of a mother to me than she ever could. Her assistant, my cousin, being one of them. Every time, though, that my mother would state that she was right here whenever I was ready, that ideology still blows my mind today, that a person could openly admit to being an uninterested, not put my best foot forward type of parent and be so self-centered that they still express to the kid, you have to come to me when you're ready. You got to come to me for us to make this right. Okay. But I'm not sure what my mother could possibly think that she has shown me in the past or have for me now that's not money, goodness gracious, that would make me want to come to her or whatever those feelings are supposed to be. A mother is supposed to be the first woman that a boy falls in love with. I loved my mother very much, but my mother loved things more than she loved me, and she would validate her love for me by giving me things and would proceed to call me ungrateful or inconsiderate if said things did not have the desired effect. I couldn't imagine what it's like to be her, though, to ask God for what you want, and then he gives you what you need, though, only for you to ignore it and have the audacity to ask God for something else. And I'm glad I don't I'm glad I didn't do that. And when he told you no, you went to the universe instead. By no means, though, do I want to give off any type of an impression that I am a victim of anything. It's not the case. As you can see, I'm smiling from ear to ear. I'm alive. I'm happy. I'm a dad. I'm healthy, I think. I drink a lot of water. I'm getting over a cold now. I still have my days just like everybody else. And, there were a few things that she did teach me along the way. I did learn how not to love from my mother. I also learned to make sure that I never lose so much of who I am that I have to validate it through another person. And though I feel as though, in hindsight, I think she did it reluctantly, I do appreciate my mother, for showing me what the top of the mountain looks like. You know what I'm saying? It did give me perspective on what hard work and dedication can get you, but I don't want something like that at the cost of giving up something that I created. I don't want it that bad. And speaking of creations, I genuinely, truly, I really did want my mother to have a relationship with my daughter. I even fought through those intrusive thoughts that were, if she wasn't interested in you, what makes you think she's going to be interested in your kid? But it took my mother no time at all to prove that those intrusive thoughts were correct. But what I can say, good for her, the universe did, bless her with three other sons, and God willing, I'm sure that one of them, all three of them are adults now. So I'm sure that one of them, God willing, if not all three of them, will make her the grandmother that she wants to be. I still look forward, to that moment for her. But overall, when it comes to the boys, though, I am happy that whenever they do hear me talk, sorry, my phone did something weird, but whenever they hear me talk, they don't know what it is. They can't relate to what it is that I'm saying. My experience with my mother is not their experience with our mother. So my prayer for her and them is that they continue to see her the way that they see her now. I do also want to make sure that I say thank you to my mother for giving me life. Without that moment in time, I wouldn't have had my little one. But outside of that moment, there isn't anything that either of us has to offer the other. In my opinion, it's a waste of God's time and the universe's time for praying for something that you are not willing to put forth any effort to obtain. Putting the work into becoming Monique is more important to my mother than being my mother. And I do not believe that it was never about her being there and waiting for me, but it was supposed to be about me being there and waiting for her. My mother's value had reached such a low point in my life that I no longer found it necessary to either want to wait for her or even go to her. But like I said, man, I'm super grateful that she has the opportunity to do it all over again. I'm happy for her. I hope the Cat Williams tour goes well, but you know, the narrative that she prays for us to reconcile is a false narrative. It's not real, and I'd appreciate it if she stopped saying stuff like that.
So obviously y'all see this man, like, for me, I don't know, y'all might think otherwise, but I think he's hurting. It just shows that he's having like a lot of trauma. And DL Hughley brought up this, like, Monique and her kids and all of that, something that he claimed was so wrong when she did, but he did to her, which to me is just it's horrible. If you didn't like when somebody did it to you, then why would you do that to somebody, you know, in my opinion. But Monique did speak previously about, you know, her and her son estrangement and everything, and this is what she had to say, and I thought it was like big of her, and it shows her character. Like, she took accountability for the wrong that she did, in my opinion. But I'm gonna show you guys the clip.
You know, there was a time, and I have a son that will be 30 years old this year, right? There was a time that when he was a little boy, I wasn't interested in being a mother. I was interested in being a star. And I was interested in being famous. And I wasn't interested in being a wife. I was interested in taking pictures and red carpets and signing autographs and traveling the world. So I didn't really put the focus in. And now that I'm 52 and he'll be 30, well, I pay for that. There's a price you have to pay for that. And I had to apologize to my son because I said to him, I don't want you to think that your story is not valid, because I didn't tuck you in. I didn't read you those stories. I didn't show up at sporting events, because my whole thing was, yeah, but whatever you ask for, I can provide it. You see this big house? You see that basketball court out back? You see that pool? Don't you come complaining to me about nothing, because I gotta go. And when I did come home, now I'm tired. So now you don't understand that? So there was a time that this entertainment was the priority, because as a little girl, I wanted to be famous, baby. When I saw the Jacksons and I saw how the people were screaming, holler, oh my God, David, I craved that so bad. And I wanted to be dressed up pretty. I like pretty shit. I wanted to be dressed up in pretty things. So when that moment happened, that's all that it was.
And I kind of want to speak about Monique's, you know, upbringing and her humble beginnings and all of that. And I just kind of want to talk about it slightly, right? Because Monique talks about just her having a really, really hard time growing up. Yes, she was raised in a 2-parent home, but she had very, humble beginnings.
So I had to accept the fact that my father was a motherfucking alcoholic and really didn't give a fuck about his family. I had to accept the fact that my mother was a goddamn gambler and would gamble away any motherfucking thing. I had to accept the fact that my oldest brother was a goddamn molester. I had to accept the fact that my other brother signed my name to motherfucking documents and fuck with my reputation. I don't judge it, it's just what the fuck it is. So it allowed me to accept when people were telling me what I wasn't.
You know, a lot of the times, and this is what stuck out about Monique's story for me. A lot of the times people see families that have 2-parent homes and they just assume that, like, hey, you come from a 2-parent home, so you had a mom and a dad and everything was great. However, this is proof that people can be from a 2-parent home and still be broken and still be unhappy and still be struggling emotionally and still, bring up bad children, or no child is bad, but the environment to which you raise a child or bring up a child or, take care of your child can be toxic to them and, raise toxic people, and they can have horrible patterns. The fact that she was raised in a 2-parent home, but they were poor and they struggled and, they had all of these different things. And coming up, if you live in poverty, you convince yourself that, hey, maybe if we had money or maybe if we had food or maybe we had things would be better. So a lot of the times, children who are raised in poverty, who didn't have anything, feel as though, having like clothes or having things is more, more so important than having, somebody there, because they have had people there for them, but they were poor and those people hurt them and those people did different things to them and whatever. A lot of the times and this is just, my opinion, you're like raised in poverty, you think that things or having money saves things and fixes things. When, you get money, then you're like, oh yeah, everything should be better now, because you remember when you were younger or when you didn't have, how much you yearned for food, you yearned for clothing, you yearned for what you see other people have. So you think that, this is an easy fix. And, if you don't have, like, I would say concrete love, or have somebody there to consistently hold you or consistently show you that, hey, things are better beyond, objects or beyond having things, because some people can be rich with love. They don't have to have money or have, I'm rich in love, And in some cases, people don't realize that just because you have money does not mean you have love or you have peace or you have happiness in your heart. And children who are raised in poverty, they know that, hey, I might have people around me, but, I feel like if I had food or I had, objects or, just materialistic things could be better. And it takes, a certain type of, I would say, growth to realize that, hey, your happiness does not come from materialistic things. It comes from, the love in your heart. And I think it took Monique a very, very long time for her to discover that, because she was raised in a 2-parent home and she was like, hey, people were telling, you on the outside saying that, hey, they have happiness, they must have it all because they come from a 2-parent home, when in actuality, you don't have, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's a good thing to have your mom and father around. However, if it's the right environment, people should not just be together just for being together's sake, in my opinion. But, she spoke about that.
I was raised in Baltimore. Raised with both parents. Youngest of my siblings. But I was raised by people who didn't love each other. And I was raised in an environment that my mother wanted it to look one way on the outside, but it wasn't like that on the inside. And I was raised to do it individually. I wasn't raised to be a team. So that's how that shaped me. And then when you put molestation in the mix, it made me very guarded, very tight. And it made me very outspoken, because I felt like if you were trying to violate, I couldn't let that happen because it happened before. So there are people that know me from my childhood, and they would say, we thought they were so close. Because on the outside, that's what it appeared to be. But on the inside, we were raised to be individuals. So that played a big part.
So when you grow up in poverty, you just think in your mind, like, imagine if you're hungry. If you're hungry, all you could think about is food. Oh, if I had food, I would be able to do things. Things would be better if I had food, And then when you finally eat, then you're like, oh, yay, things should be better now. But then you're like, oh, shit, where am I? You start realizing, like I was so focused on food that I didn't focus on where I was. And you know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it's like when you're poor and you don't have anything, and then you come across some money, in my opinion. This is just my perspective. And then she also spoke about being in a 2-parent household, but being raised to be individual. That was just crazy to me. That was like, I think that's like huge, because how you raise people or children is such an important thing. You can be, in a situation to where on the outside it should be a certain type of way or it looks a certain type of way, but it's the opposite, the absolute opposite. So I just thought that was really powerful. And I think that, us in general, I don't even want to just speak about Monique's son. You have to kind of give your parents the benefit of the doubt, if they're trying and they're apologizing and they're trying to do better, you kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them the benefit of the doubt of possibly changing or possibly being different. I would never say deal with a toxic parent or, be connected with somebody that's toxic and somebody that's trying to hurt you, consistently as an adult, even, as they did as a child. I would never say that. But if your parent has told you, hey, I wasn't raised right, and there were things that I was taught and I was brought up to believe in my own household that is not reality, and I'm trying to do better, I'm trying to get better, I think that you should, definitely open that door of trying to understand or forgiveness, open the door of forgiveness. But forgiveness is an individual thing, you know? You can't tell somebody that they should forgive their parents or forgive anybody. People have to feel it in their heart to forgive and forgive when they're ready, you know? Monique's son still upset with her. You know, he has no need to, no desire to fix it or anything. He has to have that desire. I don't know if it's going to happen when she's passed on or when she's on her deathbed. I don't know what, what the situation is or, what it's going to take, but I just send them healing energy. And I know that this is a very, very hard thing to go through. But something I did not like is how, like, when he spoke about Monique's husband, he's like, oh, her daddy. And I didn't like that just because I feel like now that Monique is with this man, it shows a lot of growth, okay? Before she's admitting, oh, I did this wrong and I did that wrong. I mean, now she's saying I did this wrong, I did that wrong. Before, she did not care enough to, admit her wrongs. I think that has a bearing on who her husband is, He has helped her, acknowledge her wrong in certain places. And, she's trying to do better to whichever way, is going, but she's trying, and I think that says a lot. I know some parents that don't even try. I think she deserves some sort of credit for the effort. And people talk about her and Sydney and her been friends since they were children, since they were kids.
So we met in the 10th grade in Mr. Torres' class. It was Gene, me, because at the time I called him Gene. I didn't call him Sydney, right? And we all sat in the back of the class together. Just through all the years, we just stayed best friends. He knew my boyfriends. I knew his girlfriends.
So she's been with this man for a very, very long time. I feel like, it shouldn't be like downplayed, like, hey, her daddy, this is her husband. She's married this man, had 3 children with this man, and I think he feels somehow hurt. He feels like his mom has never acknowledged him. He feels like his mom, and not only does he feel, his mom has admitted to not being the best of mothers or whatever, So I really feel like there are broken pieces in between them, but I don't feel like her husband is the reason why. I think that, she's grown a whole lot since her husband, and Monique has been this way before her husband, in my opinion. I don't think that her husband is the reason why she, has not shown interest in him. I think that people need to take responsibility for their own actions, and also somebody can't give you what they don't have. So if she wasn't able to have a wonderful mother and have a wonderful examples in her life, she can't give you what she doesn't have. It's unfortunate that he got hurt this way. It's unfortunate that this man had to experience all of these horrible things and, just feeling uncared for and unloved is heartbreaking. It really is. But I hope that they can work on it and they can heal between them, without the ex-husband, without the other children being included. I just want them to have their own individual experience, whether it's therapy, whatever it is, I think that Monique, you need to, help your son heal, and you guys need to work on this. And I admit and I agree with him that he doesn't have to come to you. I think you should go to him, especially since you've been rejecting him forever so long. Why should he then come to you for a relationship? In my opinion, I just feel like you have to reach out to your son. You guys both need to go to therapy, or a pastor, talk to somebody that you respect, through this. But this has to be worked out, especially seeing how you've had the worst relationship with your own parents. We have to break this generational curse. We have to, move on. We have to be able to work on these things. You know what I'm saying? I think that your son does not need to be you in this world. Give him something better than you had with your parents, in my opinion.
Get to that place, because every man I've ever been with, I've been the boss. Every man I've ever been in a relationship with, I make the rules, I run it, I tell you how it's going to be. That's how it's always been. Well, when Sid and I got together, we've always been best friends. And he's always given me a pass on shit. Always. So when we got together, I was still fire. I was still, till he had to let me know I'm not that. That's not how you're going to address me. That's not how we're going to deal with one another. And it took me some time to feel safe, because I was raised to be a fighter. My father raised a lion, not a lioness. He raised the king gorilla. He didn't raise, the women gorillas.
So that's the last clip I wanted to show you all. It's a lot, okay? Monique was missing a lot growing up. So I think it's a reflection on how her relationship is with her son, because she couldn't give him this nurture, couldn't give him this love, couldn't give him all of these amazing things that he deserved, that he should have from his mother, because she didn't get it from her mother. It's a generational curse, And I think it needs to be broken. And I think Monique needs to reach out to her son and, make the situation right. I'm not here for D.L. Hughley and how he threw up her trauma, but didn't want her to. It was wrong when she did it. So then why would you do that and, bring her son into this? Like, it just is too much. It's just way too much. But that's all I wanted to say. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all of this. I love y'all so much, and bye.
There was Instagram that was put up, or I guess
It was TikTok, baby.
TikTok that was put up by
My son. My oldest son, Shalon. And this is what I want to say to this. There are some people that are saying, oh, you should be ashamed of your mothering skills. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is what I'll say. Let's let it play out. Because the same ones that said to me, I was crazy, I was deranged, we watched it play out. So just like with my son, we'll watch this play out. And I do want to address this though, Shalon. When you say her daddy, then that's when mommy gonna say stop playing, because this has been Uncle Sid your whole life. Uncle Sid knew you before you knew you. So for you to say her 3 sons, yes, you're absolutely right. He has 3 sons. He can't claim you as his son because he's always been Uncle Sid, and he knows your daddy very well.
and love that brother. And the irony of all of this is not what is said, but what's left off.
Yes.
See, you're leaving off the fact that the last time we laid eyes on you, your mother got you everything you needed for the newborn baby about 3 years ago. You're forgetting about how I, from Georgia, am talking you through getting your car after we gave you the half the down payment for it. And you were 31 years of age, 32 years of age at that point. And I'm negotiating the deal with the dealer for you as you sit there. And you have the vehicle you're driving right now because of your mother. These are the things that you're leaving out when you're expressing what you're expressing in reference to your mother. You're not expressing the relationship that you have with your father, where you spoke ill to him, not to mention spoke ill to your mother, but somehow your mother and father and I all have a loving relationship and communicate back and forth because of the love that we have for you. The one thing these individuals, and to the individuals out here that oftentimes speak after they've heard one side of the story, there's an old saying, believe half of what you see and none of what it is that you hear. Please don't take our word for it, but what we will convey is this. Those who are parents and have raised their parents up to being adults.
The children. Raise their children up to being adults.
Right on. Those who are parents that raise their children into adulthood know that there comes a time and a place in which they determine their own decisions, their own path. You can have multiple children that are raised in one house, but they act and they take on different things.